An Introduction to the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam by Omar Khayyam, translated by Mrs. H.M. Cadell. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Amy Gramour. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam by Omar Khayyam, translated by Jessie E. Cadell. Dedication. To Una, O spring of work, O source of power to be, each line, each thought I dedicate to thee. Each time I fail, the failure is mine own, but each success a jewel in thy throne. Jessie E. Cadell. Introduction. Jessie E. Cadell, remarkable as the only woman whose name has hitherto been connected with that of the astronomer poet of Persia, was born in London on August 23rd, 1844. Her maiden name was Nash. Her father, a city merchant, left her an orphan at an early age. Her mother's second marriage to General Liptrop took Jessie to India in 1859. In 1860, at the age of 16, Jessie Nash became the wife of Henry Mowbray Cadell, third son of John Cadell of Tranent, East Lothian, at the time of his marriage a captain in the Bengal Artillery, who in 1867 left her a widow with two boys, John, now a captain in the Royal Artillery, and Arthur. The Cadells had returned to England in 1864, and lived principally in the south of France and Algeria until Captain Cadell's death. Mrs. Cadell then took up her residence in Edinburgh, much influenced no doubt by her affection for her mother-in-law, of whom, after her death in 1883, she wrote to the present editor: "The day after I was at the Museum I was summoned away to Edinburgh by my mother-in-law's illness. She died on Sunday. It has been a great loss, for she had been a very great deal to me, and her house a second home." Few of Mrs. Cadell's letters are without traces of her devotion to her children, but the care of their education could not engross the energies of her active mind. She had studied Persian to a slight extent in India, mainly to relieve the tedium of a military station, and with no view to linguistic research. Fascinated by the gorgeous charm of India, she had conceived the idea of writing its history. She found that a knowledge of Persian would be indispensable, and actively resumed her studies soon after her settlement in Edinburgh. Persian poetry, however, is generally more attractive than Persian prose, and affords an easier introduction to the language. Mrs. Cadell's attention was thus gradually diverted from the more ambitious undertaking, which would indeed have greatly overtaxed her fragile constitution. Mrs. Cadell's decision to make Persian poetry her principal study was probably formed about the time of her removal to London, in 1873, and would be greatly encouraged by the facility of access to Persian manuscripts. Mutual friends introduced the writer of this memoir to her acquaintance in 1877 or 1878, and he shortly afterwards heard of the version of Omar Khayyam, which her studies in the interval had enabled her to commence. The essay on the true Omar Khayyam, if it did not already exist, must have been written soon afterwards. For this the present writer was so fortunate as to procure admission into Fraser's Magazine, where it appeared in May 1879. This little service doubtless promoted a friendship which would as certainly have existed without it, and the rather as Mrs. Cadell was already endeared to some of the writer's best friends. It may indeed be said of Jessie Cadell that to know her was to value her. Though her personal as well as her mental graces would have made her an ornament to any society, the qualities which won her favour were far from merely ornamental. It would be difficult to find a more thoroughly sterling character, one whose gifts and accomplishments were more conscientiously and systematically made auxiliary to serious ends. It would also have been difficult to find one whose friends were more unanimous in their judgment respecting her. She seemed to impress every one alike. This unanimity, though it would have been impossible except in the case of a person of great singleness and straightforwardness of character, was no doubt largely due to the general and inevitable perception of the dominant fact in Mrs. Cadell's life, the struggle against dissolution, which by this time coloured her entire existence, and around which all minor circumstances had come to group themselves. From 1879 onwards, Mrs. Cadell's life was a struggle for existence, pursued at the expense of the two dearest interests which made existence precious to her. She would fain have lived wholly for her children and her work. It was now but by fits and snatches that she could devote herself to either. She moved from place to place, seeking and occasionally finding alleviation and hope, then thrown back, then again rallying, gradually parting with her strength, but with spirit unconquerable to the end. Her correspondence contains much that is melancholy as a bare statement of fact. Never a word of regret or repining. The struggle with pain and debility seemed to brace her energies, and to become in some measure a substitute for the work to which, so long as health allowed, she had dedicated her life. So have I not, unmoved in mind, seen birds of tempest loving kind, thus beating up against the wind. She found from time to time refuge at Florence, where she enjoyed the friendship of Miss Violet Paget, and at Siena, where she fell in a measure under the spell of the genius loci, St. Catherine, in whom she recognized a kindred spirit to her Persians. No enthusiast in our time, she wrote, could have been so sensible. She meditated a translation of St. Catherine's most remarkable utterances, but broken health forbade. Nor did she forget Omar, and always looked forward to the production of the standard edition in which the genuine quatrains were to be sifted from the spurious and the true Omar discriminated from FitzGerald's brilliant but misleading paraphrase. She writes from Cadenabia, May 27, 1881. So far I have not been able to do any steady work, but I have looked into the libraries of the towns I had passed to ask for Khayyam. I only found trace of him in one place, Venice, where there looked me in the face, from a glass case, two well-known quatrains of Omar. The librarian was out. I found out when he was to be back, and walked about Venice in a considerable state of excitement for a couple of hours. I had forgotten that I cared so much about it all, until there seemed a chance of a new manuscript. The librarian was very kind, and I got it out at last, but it proved to be a disappointment. It was only a fragment, 24 quatrains instead of 200 or 300. It was carefully catalogued as the Yusuf and Zuleika of Nuzami. Altogether Italy seems poor in Persian, but it is rich in so much else that one has no right to grumble. Up to the beginning of 1884 Mrs. Cadell's spirit had remained unabated, and there is no indication of her admitting the hopelessness of her recovery even to herself, nor indeed is any symptom of despondency to be found in her communications with the present writer. But there are tokens that she was beginning to find the struggle too severe. This does not appear to have been occasioned by aggravation of suffering so much as by increasing weakness. The contest with sickness had kept her in a kind of artificial health. Her sword had been her staff, and she drooped when it was withdrawn. In the last letter which the writer received from her, dated Florence, April 26, 1884, she says, after speaking of a slight degree of improvement which she had experienced after reaching the city, "Still it is a very scanty measure of health, and I am so wretchedly weak as to find that positive suffering." She adds, "I shall stay here, I suppose, until I am well enough to move myself." That until never became a now. She died at Florence on July 17, 1884, and was interred in the cemetery which holds the remains of Mrs. Browning and Landor and Theodore Parker and so many other gifted men and women of English race. The True Omar Khayyam, published in Fraser in May 1879, is the sole contribution towards her chosen task which Mrs. Cadell was enabled to get in print during her lifetime. It falls mainly into two sections: criticism of FitzGerald as a translator, and of Omar as a thinker, both points of which are combined in the following passage. As very beautiful English verse, no one can doubt that Mr. FitzGerald's Khayyam fully deserves its fame. As a translation we are less satisfied with it. While acknowledging that the translator has been, on the whole, successful in catching the sound of the Persian lines, wonderfully so in the setting thoughts and phrases from the Persian in his English verses, we contend that this is hardly enough to satisfy us in the translation of a set of epigrams. It is a poem on Omar rather than a translation of his work, and its very faults have, to English readers, taken nothing from its charm and added much to its popularity. Its inexactness has allowed the infusion of a modern element, which we believe to exist in the Persian only in the sense in which the deepest questions of modern life are of all time. Its occasional obscurity, too, has rather helped than hindered the impression of the whole. People expect obscurity in a Persian writer of the 12th century, even like it, as it leaves dark corners which the mind can light up any way it pleases, and regard what it finds there as one of the peculiar beauties of Eastern thought. These parts have less attraction for those who, knowing Khayyam in the original, have learned to value him for himself. This is the natural point of view of the Persian scholar versus the amateur. It is nevertheless somewhat unjust to FitzGerald, who never placed himself in the Persian scholar's position. He never professed to translate Omar, only to paraphrase him, and his version must be regarded as a variation upon a given theme, not a transcript of it. Many quatrains, he says himself, are mashed together. Nevertheless, while indulging in liberty, he kept on the right side of license. He altered and added, says Professor Cowell, but never invented an entire tetrastitch of his own; and Mr. Heron Allen finds that many of his most daring interpolations are but transplantations from the Marti Atari of another Persian poet, Ferid ud Din Attar. While nevertheless we are far from condemning FitzGerald, it is a matter of much interest to rightly appreciate the Persian semblance of the figure which his genius has brought, in half European costume, upon the theatre of modern literature. Few probably have been so well qualified as Mrs. Cadell for this work of restoration. Deeply sympathetic with independent thought in every form, she possessed a clear logical understanding, and her first inquiry under all circumstances was, "What is true?" Her verdict upon Khayyam as a thinker is as follows: "He mocks, questions, laments, enjoys; is a person of varying moods, strong feelings, and remarkable boldness. But he has some sort of belief at the bottom of it all. He has no doubt about his enjoyment of the pleasant things around him while they last. He can chafe against the sorrows of life and its inevitable end, the folly of the hypocrites, and the cruelty of fate; but he never doubts the existence of an oppressor, or questions the reality of sorrow any more than that of death. It would seem that with all his boldness he never succeeded in convincing himself that he was in the right, and that his attitude of mind towards God, the law, and moral obligation was that of rebellion, not negation. In many respects Khayyam contradicts preconceived notions of Oriental character. Though fond of pleasure, he was not attracted by a sensual paradise; he was not indifferent to death; he was not passive under the hand of fate, or at all remarkable for resignation. He is a discovery, a light on the old Eastern world and its reality, which proves, as do most realities, different from what suppositions and theories would make them." On the question how far the constant praises of wine and incitement to conviviality in Omar's verse is to be understood literally, Mrs. Cadell is very illuminating. Without agreeing with those who look on it all as simply a figure for divine love, the wine of the love of God, we come to regard it as representing more than mere sensual pleasure. We must remember that drinking had in the East at that time no vulgar associations. Wine parties were common in the houses of the great men, and in the courts of the princes. These wine parties were in fact the nurseries of all the intellectual life of the time which was unconnected with religion, and did much to counteract the dullness of orthodox Mohammedan life. So little growth to be got in what was lawful, it was small wonder that stirring minds turned from it, and as including so much else that they valued, we find them idolizing the pleasure which seemed so fertile as a metaphor for the rest. This we are much inclined to believe is the real explanation of Omar's apparent attitude towards the wine cup. A man of his intellectual superiority, an astronomer too, whose pursuits especially required sobriety and method, cannot have been the mere Epicurean, not in the sense of Epicurus, for which he might be taken. "I swear I drink not my poor thirst to slake," he says in one place, Wine stands to him as, in Mrs. Cadell's words, a metaphor for the rest, an abbreviated symbol for all the excellent things from which Mohammedan bigotry debarred the free and genial soul. He occupies himself, says Mrs. Cadell, with the problems which, dealt with unsatisfactorily to Persian minds by Mohammedan theology, gave rise to the mysticism of Attar, Jalal ad Din Rumi, and Saadi. This remark on the unsuitableness of Mohammedan theology to the Persian mind opens up a deep question. How far has Persia assimilated Islam? Accustomed to comprehend Arabs, Turks, and Persians under the general denomination of Orientals, we are liable to forget that there is no community of race among them. The Mohammedan religion was imposed by a Semitic people upon an Aryan one, without condescension to the subtleties of controversy, but by dint of apostolic blows and knocks. An authentic history of the conversion of Persia to Islam would be a very curious chapter in human history. The process was far from instantaneous. For 2 centuries after the overthrow of the Sasanian monarchy we find the followers of the 2 religions holding public disputations, and about the same time was compiled the Dinkard, an extensive digest of Zoroastrian theology and law. The reader of The Fisherman and the Genie will remember that a fourth of the metamorphosed inhabitants of the enchanted lake city are fire worshippers, and the story of Amgiad and Asad shows the strength of the old religion and the embittered feeling between its votaries and the followers of Islam. We do not suggest that Omar was secretly a Zoroastrian, but the doctrine of heredity teaches that repugnance to Mohammedanism was not likely to be extinct in him, and that in this respect he probably shared the Sufi frame of mind, little of a Sufi as he may have been himself. Now, one of the points upon which the 2 religions came most markedly into collision was the lawfulness of wine, prescribed by one and lauded by the other as one of the Deity's chief gifts to man. The anonymous author of the Dina-i Mainog Kerad, Opinions of the Spirit, a Persian book probably written shortly before the downfall of the empire, says of the moderate use of wine: "It causes recollection of things forgotten, and goodness takes place in the mind. It likewise increases the sight of the eye, the hearing of the ear, and the speaking of the tongue, and work which it is necessary to do and to expedite becomes more progressive. He also sleeps pleasantly in the sleeping place, and rises light. And on account of these contingencies, good repute for the body, righteousness for the soul, and also the approbation of the good come upon him." The writer, it is true, proceeds to enumerate the ill effects of the misuse of wine, but it never occurs to him that its use should be forbidden on that account. Without, therefore, at all disputing Omar's partiality for the juice of the grape in its most material sense, we think it may also have stood to him as an emblem of religious and philosophical freedom, much as Shelley makes it an emblem of love. One of the most important inquiries that can be instituted respecting Omar relates to the genuineness of his text. The essence and quintessence of his poetry are doubtless to be found in the 110 quatrains translated by FitzGerald, but FitzGerald has so frequently fused several stanzas into one that it is difficult to determine precisely how many he admitted into his canon. The manuscripts vary greatly in the number of quatrains recognized as Omar's. Of the 2 used by FitzGerald, the Oxford manuscript contains only 158. The Calcutta, swelled, he says, by all kinds of repetition and corruption, has 516. A Cambridge manuscript has no fewer than 801, but is very modern. The Calcutta printed edition of 1836 has 492. M. Nicholas's translation 464. Bodenstedt's 467. Shack's 336. Winfield's 500. Mrs. Cadell found no less than 1040 quatrains attributed to Omar, of which not more than from 250 to 300 were accepted by her as authentic. Her own version includes 150, the genuineness of a few of which may appear questionable. Mr. Garner deemed the spirit of Omar sufficiently represented by the 152 which he selected from the mass, and most readers will probably agree with him. From a critical point of view, nevertheless, it is important to obtain as authentic a text of Omar as possible, and if his diction differs so greatly as has been represented, from the poets who succeeded him, this ought not to be a matter of very great difficulty as regards the question of genuineness. The frequent variations of text would be less easy to adjust, unless some manuscript should be found considerably nearer to Omar's time than any at present known. Mrs. Cadell was not long in obtaining recognition for her work in the highest quarter. It came under the notice of Bodenstedt, then engaged in the preparation of his translation of the Rubaiyat, published in 1881. Totally unacquainted with the identity, and entirely unsuspicious of the sex of the translator, he wrote in his introduction: "An Orientalist, whose name is unknown to me, but who, in a very searching review of FitzGerald's version, signed J.E.C., reveals himself as one thoroughly acquainted with Omar, hits the mark in rejecting all one-sided interpretations of the poet, and proving that a deeply religious spirit breathes from his finest strophes, which may be recognized even when he is attacking Islam, a creed repugnant to his nature, with the sharpest weapons of reason." This is not exactly the view of Mrs. Cadell, who, while vindicating Omar from the charge of sheer agnosticism, represents him as a rebel against precepts in whose supernatural sanction he, nevertheless, does not wholly disbelieve. Both this view and Bodenstedt's, however, occupy a middle position between the two one-sided interpretations, of which Bodenstedt complains, the Epicureanism of FitzGerald, and the Sufism of M. Nicholas. They admit of reconciliation if we place ourselves at the point of view which both Bodenstedt and Mrs. Cadell all but assume, and regard Omar as an example of an Aryan intellect in revolt against an uncongenial Semitic theology, which nevertheless the power of tradition and early association disables him from discarding as decidedly as he would wish. The sanity of both critics has effected much for the vindication of their author. Bodenstedt justly points out the impossibility of finding any record of coherent mental development in a series of quatrains arranged by the scribes according to the alphabetical order of the first lines. Mrs. Cadell shows what slight warrant some of FitzGerald's audacities derive from the original Persian. Had she known FitzGerald more intimately, she might have also pointed out how Omar's verse had come as a torch to enkindle thoughts long latent in his own mind. What marvel if, where strewed the fuel lay, around the heart the sudden flame upwent? Mrs. Cadell left not only a metrical but also a prose version of her 150 quatrains, which evidently preceded the poetical rendering. Indeed, as the few translations of her own given in the true Omar are invariably in prose, and agree exactly with the prose manuscript, it may be conjectured that the metrical translation was not then in existence. The prose, at all events, is the basis of the verse, and the comparison of the two is interesting as showing what labour the latter cost her. In a few instances, where the exigencies of metre have been too hard for her, and she has evidently failed to satisfy herself, recourse has been had to the prose for an amended version. Substantially, however, the work is given to the world as she left it. She also left behind her a transcript of the Persian text of the 150 quatrains, with marginal notes, indicating in which of 14 manuscripts which she consulted, indicated by letters of the alphabet, any particular one is found. This is frequently interesting and suggestive. There appears, for example, but one instance of a quatrain occurring in one manuscript only, but many of its being confined to 2 or 3. When this is the case, A, B, and D are almost certain to be among the manuscripts containing it. A quatrain contained in A is almost certain to be included in B also, but B has many not found in A. The quatrains cited from M and N are so few that Mrs. Cadell probably had not herself collated these manuscripts. It is not certain whether she intended to have published the Persian text, but it is most probable that she did, and that she would have added particulars respecting the manuscripts, and an endeavour to determine their various degrees of authority. She would also, no doubt, have appended, explanatory notes, which have been deemed superfluous at the present advanced period of Khayyamite study. As a translator, Mrs. Cadell's work is entitled to the indulgence that may be justly claimed by a labour of love. Deciding that her author could not be effectively rendered in prose, she courageously essayed a verse translation, although her experiences of the poetic art must have been the slenderest. So far, indeed, as known to the present writer, the noble quatrain of her own, prefixed to her rendering, is her sole original essay in metrical composition. Under the circumstances her success must be considered remarkable. She wants neither dignity, tenderness, nor epigrammatic brevity. Her defects are mainly technical, and some, such as the frequent imperfect rhymes, would have disappeared under the stricter revision which her broken health never allowed her to carry through. In one respect she is manifestly at a disadvantage, not only in comparison with FitzGerald, but with Mr. Winfield, Mr. Garner, and Mr. Heron Allen. Her failure to reproduce the precise form of the original, a form particularly adapted for sententious poetry, she was, nevertheless, well advised in declining to undertake what at this early stage of her poetical discipline would have been entirely beyond her power. But it may be regretted that she did not discard rhyme altogether in favour of an easy metrical prose. The necessity for finding rhymes evidently cramped her terribly. Her strong point is the sympathy with Omar which renders her more of a Persian than any of her competitors. We seem nearer to Omar in her verse than elsewhere. FitzGerald, as she herself remarks, has rather written a poem upon Omar than translated him, and the other translators, though faithful to the mere wording of their original, behold this through a medium of 19th century thought. Jessie Cadell alone expresses herself as Omar might have done had he returned to earth to give his poem to England. As FitzGerald's translation will survive to the latest age of English literature as a proof of the supreme importance of grand form, so may hers as an instance of the power of love and zeal to neutralize serious technical defects. Mrs. Cadell was the authoress of two novels, Ida Craven (1876) and Worthy, published posthumously in 1895. The former is not only a clever but a highly interesting and individual book, giving a lively picture of life on the Indian frontier, noble and bracing in its moral tone, and a mirror of the animating personality of the authoress. The comparative languor of Worthy, a story of the Franco-German War, with some scenes in Corsica, is due to the depression of ill health. Both stories reproduce the scenery and embody the experience of the authoress's life. Invention was not a strong point with Mrs. Cadell. They tell more of her, however, than she could convey as the interpreter of the thoughts of another, if hardly more than might have been inferred from her own motto and confession of faith, the dedicatory quatrain in the front of her translation, by which, had she written nothing else, she would have deserved to live. Richard Garnett, May 23, 1899. End of the introduction to the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam by Omar Khayyam, translated by Jessie E. Cadell. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam by Omar Khayyam, translated by Mrs. H.M. Cadell. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Amy Gramour. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, translated by Mrs. H.M. Cadell. Since none can promise thee tomorrow's light, make glad, my love, thy weary heart tonight. Yea, by the moonlight nectar's goblet drain, for many moons will seek us, but in vain. When I am dead, wine on my body pour, above my corse the goblet's praises tell. And would you find me at the judgment's knell, seek in the dust beside the tavern door. Men call the Koran God's almighty word, yet read it rarely, or forget it quite. Yet doth a graven verse the cup engird, that all men con, and all their tongues recite. You drink not wine, but why the drinker flout? Must I repent? First will I God forsake. You always boast that wine you do without, and yet 100 weightier precepts break. As far as in you lies, give no man pain, subject him not unto your anger's fire, and would you to eternal peace aspire, grieve for yourselves, from grieving man refrain. Both scorn and proud hypocrisy eschew, taunt not the drinkers if you can refrain, and if some pleasure from your life you'd gain, keep him who revels well within your view. So much wine will I drink, that from the clay 'neath which I'm laid will rise its sweet perfume, and as the reveller passes o'er my tomb, o'ercome by odorous sweet, he'll swoon away. 'Mid scattered treasures we, with wine and mirth, are free from hope of peace or fear of pain. Life, heart, cup, vesture, pawned for wine, no chain confines in air or water, fire or earth. O Heaven! our woe is offspring of thy hate, from all time 'tis thy way to be unjust. O Earth! if men would cleave thy bosom's dust, what precious gems they would accumulate. To-day, which is the season of my youth, I drink, for in that is my happiness. Slander not wine as bitter, for 'tis sweet; in me my life alone is bitterness. Thou canst not help to-morrow by to-day; care for the morrow is but folly's spray. If thy heart wake, forbear this hour to waste, dreaming of joys that thou mayst never taste. This cup was once a man disconsolate, yea, such as I, wooing a stately queen. That handle there, which on its neck is seen, was then an arm around his lovely mate. Long, long ago, man's fate was graven clear, the pen left naught unwrit of joy or woe, since from eternity God ruled it so. Then senseless are our grief and striving here. He who has formed the goblet from the clay can ne'er destroy his art's surpassing token. These hands and feet in face of beauty say, why framed in love, and why in fury broken? O Khayyam, why for sin this sorrowing? What gain its less or more, can any say? On him who sins not, shines not mercy's ray. Where then their harm, since sins God's mercy bring? Behind that veil no man has found a way, nor knows he anything of life's array. He has no home but underneath the clay. Thy truth, thy sorrow is, O woeful lay. In the proud mosque, in Magian temple tall, and in Christ's church men supplicating fall, would hell escape and heaven's joy attain. But he who has God's secret learnt is sure that the fair fruits of his rich blessings pure can never ripen from such mouldy grain. 'Twas while I slept that thus a wise man spoke, sleep never caused joy's rose in man to bloom. Why court you thus the fellow of death's yoke? Drink now, you'll sleep enough in earth's dark womb. Bad men must not behold thy secrets bright, and fools thy mysteries may never see. O God, how thou wouldst harm humanity, if from it all thou didst conceal thy light. Not fit for heaven, nor quite worthy hell, God only knows why thus he me has made. Ugly as sin, poor as an infidel, faith, hope, and fortune all within me fade. I swear I drink not my poor thirst to slake, nor is it that I faith or manners lack. I drink, am drunken, but to breathe one breath of ecstasy, and hope for that ere death. They tell me I am doomed eternally. It is a lie, in which I'll put no trust. If all who love and drink in hell are thrust, then heaven as empty as my hand will be. In those old halls which rang to Bahram's jest, the wolf now casts her young, the hind takes rest. Bahram, who respite to the game ne'er gave, is now in turn the booty of the grave. O love, as life brings sorrow to thine eye, as soon from flesh thy spirit forth must fly. Sit on the grass, and let these few days be joy to thy heart, ere grass grow forth from thee. O Khayyam, this thy body is a tent, thy soul its lord, eternity his home. Death, the tent pitcher, strikes this tent of thine for life's next stage, when thy lord hence must roam. Khayyam, as deepest lore he sought to win, fell in grief's brazier and was burned therein. Fate's scissors midst life's tent ropes havoc wrought, and then death's broker sold the bits for naught. When a fair face is by me in the spring, to fill my cup beside the desert's brink, though this my saying doubtless you will blame, worse than a hound were I of heaven to think. Thou shalt be parted from thy soul, and then enter God's vale of mystery again. Be glad, for whence you came you do not know; drink, for you wist as little where you go. My life I've spent in praise of ruby wine, my home is but the temple of her shrine. Is she thy mistress? Saint of wisdom, say, thy mistress is my slave, therefore be gay. The world a girdle for our bodies worn, the Oxus but a trace of blood-stained tears, Hell but a spark from senseless sorrow's fears, and Heaven a breath of roses opening morn. A rebel slave am I, and I would know where is, O God, thy will's all-swaying sword. My heart is dark, where is thy light and grace? If heaven is only servitude's reward, it is but barter and a poor exchange, where then is thy forgiveness, mighty Lord? I know not if it be the will divine to call me to heaven's gladness or hell's woe. A lute, a cup, my love, where sweet flowers blow, such is my coin, be heaven's credit thine. I drink, and enemies with all their might say, do it not, wine is the true faith's foe. So be it, then I drink, for well I know to drink the foeman's blood is ever right. The good and evil which in man you see, the joy and sorrow which may come to thee, impute these not to fickle fortune's wheel, for in love's path 'tis certain sure that you are not so weak as is the giddy whirl, which that wheel makes beyond our vista's view. He who has sown by love joy in his soul has not spent fruitlessly life's brightest days, for either he has tried to tread God's ways, or sought his own peace in the lifted bowl. Since God has thus my body fashioned, each deed I shall perform he first must know. No sin of mine but from his dictates flow. Why then should hell fires with my bones be fed? Oh, pity me the heart where no fires be. That is not sorrow stamped with pure love's kiss. That day you drink not wine, remember this, that day is lost, no day is it to thee. Since we possess not truth and certainty, we must not sit in hope's expectancy, but hold we ever a full cup to cheer. That we shall sober die, we need not fear. As my first coming was no wish of mine, so my departure I cannot devise. Gird thyself, Saki, fair bright Saki, rise, lest time should fail to drink this skin of wine. How long will you of heaven's blessings tell, or drone of torments of lost souls in hell? How long discuss the dim mosque's scented light? Look at the tablet, read what's writ aright by the great Lord of Fate's uncertainty, for all the future from eternity. Drink deep, for long you'll sleep beneath the rose, without companion, neighbor, wife, or friend. Beware, let none this dark veil's secret rend, the withered bloom no second freshness knows. The world by joy has o'ercome sorrow's death, each living heart turns from the desert drear. On every branch today white blooms appear, and full of life is every clamorous breath. He from whose stem springs not truth's fruit of gold, be sure he is not well met in the way, but he will be who bears that tender spray, today as yesterday, tomorrow as of old. On the first day my heart, exalted high, craved pen and tablet, heaven and hell to see, till at the last the Master made reply, pen, tablet, heaven, and hell are all in thee. Sweet to the rose is dewy morn in May, sweet is a lovely face midst orchards gay. 'Tis only sad to talk of yesterday, rejoice, for everything is sweet today. Be ye then bold, for fate doth sorrow yield. Sit not at ease, the sword of time is keen. If fortune place some sweet your lips between, beware, eat not, poison is there concealed. How long shall I fling spears at the smooth sea? I loathe all pious men's idolatry. Khayyam, who say that hell shall be thy doom? Who goes to hell, and who from heaven hath come? As the brook's water or the desert's wind, another day of this my life has fled. Griefs of 2 days I ne'er will bring to mind. The one has not yet come, the other's sped. To those who sit with fairy faced maids, by rose or stream or fields of waving corn, bring the full wine cup. Those who drink at morn are free from mosques or temples' servile shades. They say in heaven's joy's shining face shall glow. I answer, sweet earth's vintages now are. Hold fast the coin, let future credit go. An empty drum sounds pleasant from afar. Wine's melted ruby, the jug the mine, the cup the body, its soul the wine. And the crystal cup where the wine shines through, a tear where the heart's blood is hid from view. Drink wine, for it is everlasting day, it is the very harvest of our youth. In times of roses, wine and comrades gay, be happy, drink, for that is life in sooth. Whate'er the tulips or the roses bloom, know that they sprout where blood of kings hath flowed. Each violet tuft that bursts in fresh perfume was once a mole where beauty's visage glowed. Arise, bring wine, what need is there to speak? To me thy doubts to-night are sunlight's glare. Give me one draught as rosy as thy cheek, for my repentance wavers like doth thy hair. You long for joy, my spirit said to me, then show me that you gladness comprehend. I answered, Ay. He stopped me, hold their end. One letter is enough, if wit there be. Give wine, my wounded heart is scored with pain. Our path has scarce got any other gain. I love the clay from which the cup is wrought, more than yon wheel where skulls do count for naught. A cup, a loved-lipped cornfield's waving swell, these are my cash, be heaven's credit thine. Some men existence pawn for heaven and hell. Who goes to hell? Who comes from heaven divine? O thou whose cheek is but the counterfeit, most perfect of wild roses blooming sweet, whose face is formed in mould of eastern grace, when on the chessboard of life here below thou dost thy magic glance benignly throw, pawns, castles, kings, and knights all give thee place. Why Baghdad, or why Balkh? Our life's near done, its cup is full. Joy, sorrow, which is gain? Rejoice, for after us the phases run. Inconstant moons will ever wax and wane. Life's caravan passes in wonder by. Unknown the hour is which most blessing bears. Saki, why fret for our friend's future cares? 'Twere best the cup to bring, the dawn is nigh. Behold, now strengthen me with blood-red wine, and make my amber visage ruby red. Wash me with wine when I have passed away, and with the vine's wood line my earthy bed. The road of love we must have purified, destruction in death's hand we'll surely see. O sweet-faced Saki, liquid almond-eyed, now give us water, dust we soon shall be. Naught else is left of joy but some poor names, new wine, the one friend faithful as of old. Therefore from that do not joy's hand withhold, to-day when thereof nothing else remains. In tavern wine alone can purge life's pangs, the name once sullied none can ever clean. Rejoice, for now our reputation's screen can ne'er be mended, in such rags it hangs. In life no man can pluck love's rosy wreath without a scratch from thorns all pointed keen, e'en as the comb, till cut in many teeth, cannot caress the curl-tips of a queen. May to my hand the brimming cup ne'er fail, and may some beauty always love me true. They say God showers on me repentance dew. He does not; if he did, 'twould not avail. The day is sweet, the air not hot, not cold. The clouds from off the rose have washed the dust, and to the rose the bulbul's chant is trolled. And this methinks the burden, drink ye must. Ere death's assault fall on that head of thine, Say, "Sweetheart, bring to me the rosy wine." Thou art not gold, O senseless fool, that men should bury thee to dig thee up again. My advent on the world no gain conferred, nor will my going raise its rank or state, nor have mine ears from any mortal heard the reason why I came, or what my fate. The love which is but feigned is nothing worth, 'tis like a half dead fire, a flameless coal. Nights, days, months, years, are by the faithful soul passed without food or sleep, or rest or mirth. 'Tis writ that houris shall our heaven complete, where fountains flow with honey and pure wine. What harm then here to worship at their shrine, whom at life's ending we above shall meet? No man has trod one step outside himself, none have the ravel of dark death untwined. When I from pupil to the master turn, all woman's offspring do I helpless find. Live ye content, yearn less for this world's gain, of earthly good and bad break loose the chain. Rejoice, for ever as the heavens move, so all things pass, and will our life remain? Drink, it will cut uncertainty in two, and pacify the doctors 72. Hold none then back from it, yea, quaff it too, and one good draught will all your frets subdue. Wine is unlawful, 'twere best first to think who drinks how much, what his companions be. Be sure, if answered well these questions three, that no one but the wise of wine will drink. I drink, and he who is as wise as I wine's evil finds a simple thing, I wot. God from all time has known futurity, and I should prove him wrong if I drank not. Each draught on thirsty earth that Saki pours quenches the fire of sorrow in hot eyes. Then praise ye God when ye recall, ye wise, this water frees the heart from many sores. Agree, my friends, to meet at rising sun, and each the other's perfectness extol. And when the Saki has poured forth the soul, say as you pray, alas for such an one! One cup is worth 100 hearts or creeds, one draught of wine all China's realm is worth. In wine alone a bitterness on earth we find, whose worth 1,000 sweets exceeds. The slaves of reason, prudence, human lore, for what is not and is, sigh helplessly. Choose ye, my friends, the red grape's juicy core. Pride made these fools like shriveled raisins dry. Be not ensnared by sorrow's witching charms, or grief for fortune's ill will thee enslave. Rest by the sown fields or rivers the edge, for soon cold earth shall lull thee in her arms. As those who sink in desert's dusty ways, this life's foundations separation raise between man's heart and his rejoicing soul. So ere, like barn door cock o'erfilled with pride, they with the knife my crimson gorge divide, I'll press my lips to the wine's gladsome bowl. I'm not the man, the coming death to fear, that half may well brighter than this half be. God as alone my life has given me, I'll give it back when reckoning time draws near. The sage who on the path of peace doth go is told 100 times a day by God, seek thou the hour of fellowship, for lo, the grass you tread is ne'er by you retrod. The matter which this earth of ours contains disturbs the wise man's proud omniscience. Hold to, tight if you can, the rope of sense, for we have teachers with bewildered brains. Fortune's offspring, elected from on high, shall come, go, live again, and it may hap that some of them shall live in heaven's lap, or in earth's pocket hid, till God shall die. Some men there be who quaff pure wine alway, some in prayer's places night-long vigils keep. They all in water splash, no, none live dry, and if one wakes the rest are all asleep. My soul, oh let not fools thy feet allure, nor meddle with what can't be understood. By circling round the threshold of the poor, thou mayest be accepted of the good. Your love has in a net my old head caught, nor can my hand from wine cup be withdrawn. Love, the repentance broke which wisdom taught, the garment patience sewed by life is torn. As I, a solitary hermit, passed, he with contempt struck hard blows at the clay, and as it could, I heard it murmuring say, "Withhold, you'll eat such blows as these at last." The month Ramzan is gone, and Shawwal comes. The time of talk and joy and pleasure comes. 'Tis here, and see, bent backed and stooping low, bearing the wine skin full, the porter comes. Drink, for thy body in the earth shall dwell, and of that dust shall cups and jugs be made. Keep thyself free from thoughts of heaven and hell, the wise man can such cheating words evade. Spring breezes now to earth new freshness bring, from the clouds' eyes the fountains overspring. With Moses' blanching hand the bough is crowned, and Jesus' breathing issues from the ground. Each morning when the dew the lily bathes, and bends o'er the violets on the garden side, at least the rosebud does me justice when she sees me grasp the robe of selfish pride. O my dear friends, as oft as ye shall meet, ye must remember me, who your friend was, and as in turns you sip wine's pleasure sweet, when my turn cometh round, o'erturn the glass. Thou wine hast torn my honor's veil, 'tis well, I will not part from it while life is mine. I marvel what the vendors of pure wine can find to buy better than that they sell. Those who all grace and morals can explain, who through their perfectness have mastered light, no way have found out of this life's dark night. Each tells his story and then sleeps again. Naught can be changed of what was first decreed. Grieve as thou wilt, no heart but thine will bleed. If thy life long thine eyes shed tears of blood, 'twill not increase one drop woe's raging flood. Drink of that wine which is eternal life. It is the spring from which youth's pleasures flow. It burns like fire, yet calms our sorrow's strife. Therefore drink wine, it as life's water know. Circumcise not, all legal rites forego, withhold from none the morsel that is thine. Slander not, seek not man to harm, then know I pledge thee heaven to come, and now bring wine. Bring ye that ruby in the glass of wit, of the free man the comforter and friend. Bring wine, for know that dust is this world's end, in the short days the wind will scatter it. In the bazaar I saw but yesterday a potter hitting hard at his wet clay, and it, as best it could, cried out, "Let be! I was as thou art once, be good to me." O happy youth, arise! 'Tis morn, fill up from yonder crystal jug the brimming cup, for this sweet hour of fleeting time in vain we oft shall seek, but never find again. Yon jar lid there, all Jamshyd's crown is worth, that goblet smell more than full ears of corn, the sigh the waking reveller breathes at morn gives more delight than planetary mirth. Wouldst thou be his, from son and wife be free, yea, boldly close the door on love's most true? Existent things are bonds which tether thee, with bonds how canst thou journey, cut them through? Arise and solve my dull heart's discontent, bring musky scented rosy tinted wine, as bribe to sorrow bring the charms divine, wine's ruby in thy hand's soft blandishment. Wine's the red rose, rose water that we quaff, or ruby pure contained in crystal cup, or ruby in the fountain melted up, or moonlight tinted with sunlight's laugh. Each vow we make, at once we break in twain, on ourselves shut the gates of rank and fame. If we act madly, 'tis, why do you blame that love's strong wine has made us drunk again? O heart, 'tis true that all this world is vain, wherefore then eat the fruit of sorrow's tree? To fate thy body yield, endure the pain, the once split pen will never mend for thee. Of all the travellers on that weary way, has one returned to show us its display? Take heed that thou, in this thy dwelling vain, pass nothing by, thou canst not come again. Victorious ruler of this earth's empire, Say thou, which day wine sets the soul on fire? From Monday's dawn till Sunday's waning light, On each and every day, by day and night. It gives me greater joy to speak to thee Of that dark secret in the tavern gay, Than without thee in sombre mosque to pray. O thou of all creation first and last, Say, wilt thou burn me at the end of time, Or be all goodness then to me and mine? When on the rose's face the cloud doth rest, Deep in my heart is longing for that wine. This is no time with sleep to be oppressed. Rise, loved one, bring the cup, the sun doth shine. Go then, cast dust on heaven's sapphire stair, Drink wine, love beauty, in this world of men. What place for pious deeds, what need for prayer? Of the departed none comes back again. Though I have never in my way through life Threaded that pearl, obedience to thy will, And though through all the darkest paths of strife I have not sought to find thy face, yet still I am not hopeless of thy mercy's due, For I have never called the Great One, too. Our evil drinking trade we seek anew. At the 5 lawful hours we praise not God, But you will see us with the wine cup's nod, Stretching our necks like empty skins thereto. 'Tis not a fancy of disordered brains, But certain truth, that on life's checkered square We men are puppets whose steps God ordains. The time is short in which we dally there, Then in death's casket one by one we fall. The game is played, and earth must cover all. 'Tis morn, arise, O source of life's delight! Now gently music woo, wine's joy indite, For they who dwell here will not long remain, And they who go, never return again. With strong desire my lips the cup's lip sought, From it the cause of weary life to learn. Its lip pressed my lips close and whispered, Drink, in this world no moment can return. Fill up the cup, for snow like falls the day, With wine wherefrom the rubies red acquire. Hold the 2 feasts, make glad our company, Of this make music, and of that make fire. Eid comes, and now all will be well, For fair as bride's face he, Wine in the jug that Cayenne pours Will bright as bird's eye be. Yes, Eid will snatch from asses' heads again Of prayer the bridle, and of fast the rein. Lend me an ear, a warning I give thee, For God's sake do not wear a cloak of lies. Now is but time, the end eternity. Sell not for time, then, the eternal prize. Khayyam, be happy with the wine of love. Rejoice each hour with rosy cheek you spend, As nothingness of all will be the end. What will be nothing, while it is, approve. I passed the potter's shop by yesterday, Noisy and mute 2,000 pots I saw. From one of them a sudden shout did rise, Where's he who makes the pots, who sells, who buys? By tens my faults, my good deeds singly come. Forgive for God's sake actions reprobate. With passion's breath fan not the fire of hate, Rather forgive all by the Prophet's tomb. The spirit which men here call sorrow pure, By souls thought laden is named reprobate. Say, why should wine as water be misnamed? With wine in stony flagons on me wait. Be just, there's rare life in that lovely wine, In the cup's body lives a laughing sprite. No heavy one can be a friend of mine, Weight solely in the brimming bowl is right. O Khayyam, fortune scorns the man who mute Sits sulking at his share of being's woes. Drink from the crystal cup to sound of lute, Ere on a stone the cup to pieces goes. A soul all free from earth's defiling cord, From yon far world has come to be thy guest. Give it rich wine at morn, then joy impressed, All men shall say, God has his gift restored. Why all this talk on earth of grief and woe? Arise and pass with joy the present hour, Since mile by mile the fields with greenness glow, From brimming bumpers rosy wine outpour. Of the eternal past and future, why Discourse? they pass our understanding's powers. Be sure there's naught like wine in pleasant hours, that every knotty tangle can untie. From deepest heart of earth to Saturn's zone, to me the great world's mystery was known. I leapt out free from bonds of fraud and lies, each knot was loosed, but death's my hand defies. O whirling wheel, with thee I'm discontent, free me, I am not fit to be thy tool. Thou favor'st most the unwise and the fool, why not me too? I am not so sapient. This heavenly dome, where we distracted dwell, is likest to a magic lantern made, the sun the candle and the world the screen, and we the images that flit and fade. O come, my love, we'll drink no morrow's fears, and count as dear this life's short span of grace. To-morrow we may pass from this earth's face, to journey through those 7,000 years. How long shall fasts ensnare our vital power? And time what's one day? What 100 years? Bring then a bowl of wine, before that hour, when we as cups shall stand but potter's wares. How long deplore man's pitiful estate, and bear the blandishments of wily fate? Rejoice, thy days have passed their June at last, Eid comes, come thou, draw wine to break our fast. With passion ever I'm at war, what shall I do? What shall I do? For actions past I suffer sore, what shall I do? What shall I do? E'en shouldst thou all my sin wash clean, its stain lasts new, its stain lasts new. What I have done that thou hast seen, what shall I do? What shall I do? Since we've no dwelling in this world, 'twould be a sin of wine and love to be bereft. O saint, why weary so with old and new? What matters old and new when we have left? Although to come to the dim mosque I yearn, I come not, trust me, that I there may pray. I stole a praying mat from thence one day, it is worn out, and therefore I return. All kinds of blame I'll bear for love of thee. Break I this faith, may I be sorrow's prey. If all my life thy tyranny hath sway, the time from now till doom will quickly flee. Deceitful I'll be in this world of fraudful earth, and think upon nothing but wine and mirth. God give thee repentance, to me men will say, He does not, but did he, I would not obey. When at death's foot I've fallen in decay, when all life's hope is rooted out by pain, take heed, make wine jugs only of my clay, perchance when full of wine I'll live again. 'Tis morn, and we our breath with wine will wed, our reputation's cup on stone destroy, draw back our hands from lifelong hopes of joy, and grasp long locks and trailing robes instead. If I've committed all the sins on earth, still will I hope thy ruth will take my hand. In weakness aid thou promised me at birth, weaker than I am now I cannot stand. Of is and is not I know the outside, the inside too of human lore possess. In this my knowledge yet I take no pride, for I know how to value drunkenness. Art thou discreet, that I may tell to thee what man has been since time began to be? Woe pounded and mixed up with sorrow's clay, something of life he tastes, then slips away. Dearest, arise, 'tis for pure wine I seek, that ruby colored I may make my cheek, fling in my face, though I should sleeping lie, that which can give us wisdom's ecstasy. A corner and 2 cakes as this world's gain, I'll choose from hope of wealth and power refrain. I'll purchase poverty with heart and soul, for that I see is of true wealth the whole. In boyhood oft we to our teacher hied, in our own wisdom took a joyous pride. What was the matter's end? What do we know? As water came we, and as wind we go. To those who life's true secrets comprehend, joy, sorrow, suffering must be the same. As this life's good and bad all find one end, what matter if all's pleasure or all pain? To help the dissolute do all you can, the dome of prayer and fast beat down to ground. And Khayyam's saying here for all time sound, drink, if must be steel, but do good to man. The sore oppressions of that glassy sky, and fickle fate that favors fools below, have made my cheek a cup brimful of tears, my heart a goblet overfull of woe. End of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, by Omar Khayyam, translated by Mrs. H.M. Cadell. The Lover's Rubaiyat, by Omar Khayyam, translated by Jessie B. Rittenhouse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Amy Gramour. The Lover's Rubaiyat, by Omar Khayyam, translated by Jessie B. Rittenhouse. Lovers all, to ye who walk in blossomy ways, acquaint with rose and song, within whose hand each morrow lays the gift for which ye long, I to acquaint with joy bequeath these notes of Omar's song. To ye who walk in parched ways, bereft of rose and song, within whose hand no morrow lays the gift for which ye long, I to acquaint with pain bequeath these notes of Omar's song. Jessie B. Rittenhouse. Critics all, another Omar sayest thou? Thou'lt cast it to the winds, I trow. Nay, good my friend, be not so fast thine ill-considered scorn to cast, but look within, and thou shalt see foregathered a new company. Old Fitz is here to make his bow, but sooth he yields the foreground now, for here are, sharing his demesne, Le Gallion, Garner, Stokes, and Keene, and Powell casts a fadeless rose in tribute at the feet of those, and Cutter, Johnson, and Cadell have each a gracious word to tell, while Winfield of the graver voice adds now and then a precept choice. To counsels of the band above, whose jocund morning theme is love, you scarce will know old Amar's face, a-smiling with such pleasant grace. The door of darkness now is past, and this his counsel at the last, to loose the latchet at love's gate, unties the knot of human fate. And in the meadows for a day, with beauty hand in hand to stray, shall solve the secret you and I seek 'neath that bowl they call the sky. Of voices several their speech, yet blended to one tone is each. So, good my friend, new notes be these, speak them good hearing, an you please. Jessie B. Rittenhouse. Foreword. The motive of this little volume is indicated by its title, The Lover's Rubaiyat, a book for sweethearts and unforgetting folk who would gather joy's wind-strewn petals to fashion again the rose. The poem was mosaicked together some time ago as a matter of personal pleasure, with no vainglorious thought of print, the idea suggesting itself by chance when, in preparing a 3-version edition of Omar Khayyam, I came upon certain quatrains of sentiment not used by FitzGerald, and sounding a comparatively unaccented note in the more familiar translations. The charm of these quatrains took me captive, and ere long they began shaping to a unity and sequence, drawing together by magnetic attraction, until with such stanzas from FitzGerald as seemed their complement in thought, they had evolved to a Persian love song, having all the coherence and atmosphere of the work of a single translator, yet blended note by note from that of 10. With 2 or 3 exceptions, the translations from which the quatrains are taken are little known to the public, so that not only is their grouping into a love poem unique, but, except to students of Omar, the majority of the quatrains themselves will come as new acquaintances. The stanzas are drawn from the renderings of Edward FitzGerald, Richard Le Gallion, John Leslie Garner, E.H. Winfield, Whitley Stokes, H.G. Keene, Jessie E. Cadell, F. York Powell, Edwin Kendall Cutter, and E.A. Johnson. The Lover's Rubaiyat. O love, how green the world, how blue the sky, and we are living, living, you and I. Ah, when the sun shines and our love is near, 'tis good to live, and very hard to die. O listen, love, how all the builders sing, O sap, O song, O green world blossoming! White as the hand of Moses blooms the thorn, sweet as the breath of Jesus comes the spring. I pray you, gentle Saki of your grace, carry the wine jar to some pleasant place, where in a green and rose hung sanctuary I'll gaze all day on my beloved's face. To-day how sweetly breathes the temperate air! The rains have newly laved the parched parterre, and bulbuls cry in notes of ecstasy. Thou too, O pallid rose, our wine must share. Sweet is the breath of spring to rose's face, and thy sweet face adds charm to this fair place. To-day is sweet, but yesterday is sad, and sad all mention of its parted grace. Sweetheart, if time a cloud on thee have flung, to think the breath must leave thee, now so young, sit here upon the grass a day or two, while yet no grass from thy dust shall have sprung. For have you thought how short a time is ours? Only a little longer than the flowers. Here in the meadow just a summer's day, only to-day, to-morrow other flowers. Ah, loved one, when the laughing spring is blowing, with thee beside me and cup o'erflowing, I pass the day upon this fragrant meadow, and dream the while, no thought on heaven bestowing. A book of verses underneath the bough, a jug of wine, a loaf of bread, and thou beside me singing in the wilderness. O wilderness were paradise enow! Some for the glories of this world, and some sigh for the prophet's paradise to come. Ah, take the cash and let the credit go, nor heed the rumble of a distant drum. Think in this battered caravanserai, whose portals are alternate night and day, how sultan after sultan with his pomp abode his destined hour and went his way. Long before thee and me were night and morn, for some great end the sky is round us borne. Upon this dust, ah, step with careful foot, some beauty's eyeball here may lie forlorn. A sighing bit of breathing clay, this vase once humbly bowed before a woman's face, this earthen handle fixed about its neck, did oft in love a cypress form embrace. For even this dust that blows along the street once whispered to its love that life was sweet. Ruddy with wine it was, with roses crowned, and now you spurn it with your eager feet. When you and I behind the veil are past, oh, but the long, long while the world shall last, which of our coming and departure heeds, as the sea's self should heed a pebble cast. Come, bring that ruby in yon crystal bowl, that brother true of every open soul. Thou knowest over well this life of ours is wind that hurries by. Oh, bring the bowl. For some we loved, the loveliest and the best that from his vintage rolling time hath pressed, have drunk their cup a round or two before, and one by one crept silently to rest. The bird of life is singing on the bough his two eternal notes of I and thou. Oh, hearken well, for soon the song sings through, and would we hear it, we must hear it now. The bird of life is singing in the sun, short is his song, nor only just begun, a call, a trill, a rapture then, so soon, a silence and the song is done, is done. Ah, fill the cup, what boots it to repeat how time is slipping underneath our feet? Unborn tomorrow and dead yesterday, why fret about them if today be sweet? Were I a sultan, say what greater bliss were mine to summon to my side than this dear gleaming face, far brighter than the moon. O love, in this immortalizing kiss, on love's sweet path pursue the offering heart, in love's own precinct seek a perfect heart. 100 temples are but beaten clay, let be the temple, so thou find a heart. If in this shadow land of life thou hast found one true heart to love thee, hold it fast. Love it again, give all to keep it thine, for love like nothing in this world can last. Long have I sought, but seldom found a lover. To love aright is to be naught but lover. He who would love, yet eat and rest him too, is still an animal and not a lover. For love is a great sleepless, floodless fire. Love never moves his eyes from his desire. Were love to sleep, awaking love were gone, and what gross sustenance should love require? I dreamt a sage said, wherefore life consume and sleep? Can sleep make pleasure's roses bloom? Forgather not with death's twin brother, sleep. Thou wilt have sleep enough within thy tomb. Why at the dawning must the cock still crow? It is that by his crowing he may show that one more night has slid from out thy life, and thou art lying asleep and dost not know. To day is thine to spend, but not to morrow. Counting on morrows breedeth naught but sorrow. Oh, squander not this breath that heaven hath lent thee, nor make too sure another breath to borrow. Whether at Najapur or Babylon, whether the cup with sweet or bitter run, the wine of life keeps oozing drop by drop, the leaves of life keep falling one by one. Look to the blowing rose about us, lo! Laughing, she says, into the world I blow. At once the silken tassel of my purse tear, and its treasure on the garden throw. Rose, thou art like unto a face most fair. Rose, thou art like unto a ruby rare. Fate, thou art ever changing shape and hue, yet ever hast the same familiar air. Sometimes it is my fancy to suppose the rose thy face, so like thy face it glows. O woman made of roses out and in, sometimes I only take thee for a rose. Ah, with what skill thy Maker's hand designed thee, and with what grace and loveliness combined thee! But oft I wonder why he made thee fair, and then in this poor earthen home confined thee. Into this universe, and why, not knowing, nor whence, like water willy-nilly flowing, and out of it, as wind along the waste, I know not whither, willy-nilly blowing. At the pale gate of birth an angel stands, singing a lying song of lovely lands. Sweet as a bird each worn and weary lie, the soul believes, and takes the angel's hands. Of all the throng that broke the clay apart, who hath fulfilled the longing of his heart? Who is not weary ere his sleep begins? Oh, that we never had to make the start! If mortals out of loom and wrought he made, where should the burden of our sin be laid? Surely he did not hope with such poor stuff the roles of priest and angel could be played. And if he does not know, what will we gain if we go searching to add pain to pain? He has lived longer, sure, than me or you. Set on your puny task, for his is vain. Alike for those who for to-day prepare, and those who after some to-morrow stare, a muezzin from the tower of darkness cries, "Fools, your reward is neither here nor there." A moment's halt, a momentary taste of being from the well amid the waste, and lo! the phantom caravan has reached the nothing it set out from. Oh, make haste! Ah, make the most of what we yet may spend, before we too into the dust descend. Dust into dust, and under dust to lie, sans wine, sans song, sans singer, and sans end. Thou shalt be parted from thy soul, and then enter God's vale of mystery again. Be glad, for whence you came you do not know. Drink, for you wist as little where you go. And if the wine you drink, the lip you press, end in what all begins and ends in yes, think then that you are to-day what yesterday you were, to-morrow you shall not be less. Ah, when at last the shrouded Saki, Death, brings me a cup so sweet it takes my breath, shall I not bid him welcome like his brother? Life I have feared not, shall I then fear death? For if you cheat oblivion of its dread, you need not even know that you are dead, and rule alway, although your rule is done. Being a king of dreams, your kingdom fled. The heart wherein love's wick burns clear and well, whether it swing in mosque or shrine or cell, if in the book of love it be enrolled, is free from hope or heaven or fear of hell. Although God's service has not been my care, nor for his coming was my heart made fair, I still have hope to find the mercy seat, because I never wearied him with prayer. The impress of his hand the vessels keep, who makes and throws them on the rubbish heap. But if they turn out well, why are they broken? If ill, the blame is surely his to reap. O threats of hell and hopes of paradise! One thing at least is certain, this life flies. One thing is certain, and the rest is lies. The flower that once has blown forever dies. If grief be the companion of thine heart, Brood not on thine own sorrows and their smart. Behold another's woe, and learn thereby How small thine own, and comfort thy sad heart. O my beloved, may your glad to-morrows Stretch out before you, endless as my sorrows. Haste not away, I have but wine and you; Yea, life is naught unless from you it borrows. Oh, that there were some place where man could rest, Some end to look for in this lonely quest, Some hope that in 100,000 years Our dust might blossom on the mother's breast. If I were God, and this poor world were mine, Oh, thou shouldst see on what a fair design I would rebuild it like a dream for thee, Nor shouldst thou ever blush to call it thine. If I were God, I would not wait the years To solve the mystery of human tears, And unambiguous I would speak my will, Nor hint it darkly to the dreaming seers. Ah, love, could you and I with fate conspire To grasp this sorry scheme of things entire, Would not we shatter it to bits, and then Remould it nearer to the heart's desire? Love, the fair day is drawing to its close, The stars are rising, and a soft wind blows, The gates of heaven are opening, and a dream The nightingale sings to the sleeping rose. With twilight dew each rose's face is wet, Morning was gray upon them when we met. Still must I drink, and still must drink with thee, 'Tis many laughing hours to bedtime yet. To-night pour wine, and sing a dulcet air, And I upon thy lips will hang, O fair. Yea, pour some wine as rosy as thy cheeks, My mind is troubled like thy ruffled hair. Life's caravan is hastening on its way, Brood not on troubles of the coming day, But fill the wine cup ere sweet night be gone, And snatch a pleasant moment while you may. Yet ah, that spring should vanish with the rose, That youth's sweet scented manuscript should close, The nightingale that in the branches sang, Ah, whence and whither flown again, who knows? Ah, moon of my delight, who knowest no wane, The moon of heaven is rising once again. How oft hereafter rising shall she look Through this same garden after me, in vain? Heart of my heart, in such an hour as this The cup of life brims all too full of bliss. See, it runs over in these happy tears. How strange you seem, how solemn is your kiss! O thou who in the universe entire The object art of all my fond desire, Far dearer art thou than my quickening soul, More precious thou than life's consuming fire. Like to the intertwisted melody Of harp and lute shall our true wedding be, And such a marriage of fair music make, That none shall separate the thee from me. Night with a sudden splendor opens wide Her purple robe, and bares her silver side. The moon her bosom fills the world with light, Only thy breast is lovelier, my bride. Tamam. End of the Lover's Rubaiyat, by Omar Khayyam, translated and edited by Jessie B. Rittenhouse. 100 Quatrains from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, by Omar Khayyam, translated by Elizabeth Alden Curtis. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Amy Gramour. 100 Quatrains from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, by Omar Khayyam. A rendering in English verse by Elizabeth Alden Curtis, with an introduction by Richard Burton. To Omar Khayyam. Omar, old Persian, thou hast long been dust, And still we con thy yellow page, we must. Mayhap thy spirit, with its strange unrest, Read all our bosoms at a master thrust. And one day pious, in a mood to bless Thy Saki, and the next day something less. Half rake, half saint, as changeful as the moon, Thou didst personify man's fitfulness. Ah, stern materialist from mystic skies, Thy hopeless courage dims our human eyes, And mingling with our sob for thee and me, Thy bulbul's Pelevi still swells and dies. Yea, still the bough and still the vineyard wall Shall cast their subtle charm about us all, and thus imbued with thine own tolerance, will render thee our fairest rose of all. Introduction. The appeal which old Omar makes to us across the centuries suggests two things. It denotes the modern sympathy for his type of philosophy, with its blend of Horatian hedonism and Old Testament fatalistic pessimism, sounding the deeps of life and death, and what is of more import, it shows that truly fine literature is in a sense of no time. The fundamental human cry has no nationality. The present cult of the Persian sage singer, while certain elements thereof may be ephemeral, is yet underlaid by that genuine appreciation which will be permanent because its object possesses a steadfast attraction. The potent influence of Omar is visible not alone by the ever widening circle of readers, but also by the number of those who are moved to make English renderings of this alluring classic of the East. So far as translations go, FitzGerald's, of course, stands forth in rugged loneliness. Take it for all in all, his version is matchless. Yet Mr. Le Gallienne has shown us of late that on the side of color and seduction of music, old Fitz, as Tennyson was fond of calling him, has not said the last word. FitzGerald performed a feat next to impossible for the translator. He made a second classic of his task, giving the world an English poem which challenges the original in sheer strength and beauty. Nevertheless, in Mr. Le Gallienne's quatrains there are felicities that overmatch like places in the older rendering, and so others still are led to the essay. Before the eyes of every lover of Omar it would seem as if there hovered a dim, fair creature beckoning on to the endeavor to express in still more perfect phrase the magic melodies of that poet of the mystic vine. Who has not felt the lure of that call? The rendering herewith printed is to be taken then as a personal expression of an experience too strong, too delightful, to be confined to the passive receptivity of one who merely reads. No challenge or comparison is implied, as the graceful foreword says, and I feel sure that others who, like myself, sit down to it in this mood will derive therefrom an exceptional pleasure. Miss Curtis's version is most sympathetic, firmly yet delicately touched, at times lovely in the extreme. Stanzas 47, 48, and 49, to choose almost at random, are worthy of the original, which is the ultimate of praise. Those familiar with existing versions will be interested to get in hand a new rendering so able, and will realize how good a piece of work is here, while those who received their first introduction to Omar through her efforts may be assured that the lady usher who bows them into the presence has the manners suited to such society. Richard Burton, October 23rd, 1899. Foreword. You who live in the country know that there are men and women, and little children even, who rake after the loads in the fragrant season of the hay harvest. Is it not a fashion applied the world over in every walk of life, to every trade? We follow in the footsteps of our betters, and are at infinite pains to gather up the overflow of their bounty. Wise men have translated the philosophy of the Persian Omar. This little book is but a raking after these greater ones, lest perchance one crimson rosebud, one chaplet of vine leaves, be left forgotten by the wayside. Elizabeth Alden Curtis, Hartford, Connecticut, August 1st, 1899. 100 Quatrains. Up, now the sun ablaze in guerdoned might has rooted all the starry hosts of night, and hurling shafts upon the castle wall secures the vantage to the realm of light. The vine its fruitage to your pleasure strips. Come in, ye laggards, cease your wanton quips. A mighty voice within the hostel cried, ere fate strikes down the tankard from your lips. And as the chanticleer his clarion shrilled, the loiterers swelled in answer, single-willed. Then open, for the cup is at the dregs, and once run dry may never be refilled. While yet the snow is on the distant towers, the earth at Musa's touch blooms white with flowers, and now the resurrection of the leaf is come again with Isa's healing showers. If great Jamshyd, and such as Kai Caius, have fallen victim to death's far-flung noose, Brother, will death spare thee? Then quickly seek brief solace in the grape's reviving juice. And hark! this scheme that I myself propose, the nightingale enlarges to the rose. Drink, drink, beloved, ah, beloved, drink! Flush those pale petals ere they droop and close. Then fling the ashes of regretting by, and fill with me the ruddy tankard high, for life is like a bird upon the wing, and gone as swiftly as an houris sing. At Naishapur or Balkh the days will pass, and changing moons with silver flood the grass. The bitter draught be mingled with the sweet, the sands of life keep running through the glass. The rose today that riots o'er the wall, a ruin at tomorrow's feet must fall. Then woo the flower with no vain regret, ye but lament the common end of all. Feast not with Hadim Tai, nor mourn the rose, nor follow Rustum to a meed of blows, for fate inexorable still endures, and wise or foolish he must reap who sows. Along the desert's verge, in grassy bowers, with thee, O love, to dream away the hours, the human ant hill and the ants forgot, I would not barter for a sultan's powers. A roll of verse, a crust of wheaten bread, thy voice for music, and my soul is fed. The ruby of thy crimson lips for wine, ah, who would choose a paradise instead? Mayhap the holy eremite is wise, mayhap his Eden is a thing of lies, but while the moment thrills with love and wine, why covet an uncertain paradise? The red rose cried, when flushing dawn grew bold, truly as Yusef's flower I am told, my treasure heart, the blood upon my dress, make fitting symbol of the lust for gold. Oh, kiss the wine cup then, dear foolish one, and think not, when thy little course is done, that men will mine thy poor forgotten dust, as if like earth's thy veins with gold had run. And, struggling spirit, let not worldly gain, nor worldly loss, provoke thy heart to pain, for all the burden of such fevered dross will filter through thy wasting palms like rain. About this hostel old strange echoes cling, and light and dark their spanless curtains fling. Lo, through the silent years this place has given shelter alike to bondsman and to king. Those crumbling portals where the wild rose creeps once shadowed Bahram's pomp, now on the steeps the lion stalks, and e'en the timid roe fears not that master hunter, for he sleeps. The sap that dyes yon crimson drenched rose, perchance from some dead monarch's bosom flows, and that dark violet may well have drawn its azure from a maiden's eyes, who knows? These slender sedges that ye calmly trace along the river brink, ah, muse a space! Maybe that when ye tear them from the sward, ye mar the beauty of some tranquil face. Loved by the seven stars and seven seas, in this short life I swear to take my ease. Each star, they say, has shone 1,000 years, and I shall die and be as old as these. For in the silent country of surcease the white-souled throngs do hourly increase, that having drained life's cup of bitter sweet, may lay them down at last to sleep in peace. And in the paths that yesterday they trod, the bulbul sings and still the roses nod. What hand shall one day pluck the bloom away that springs above us from the fragrant sod? A little while upon this grassy steep, a little while, and under it we sleep, and though we live and love and sink to rest, the burning stars their circling vigils keep. Some seek the shelter of the church, forsooth, and some pursue the gain of mart and booth, but still the watchman on the height proclaims, blind fools, ye one and all have missed the truth. For e'en the greatest pen will cloud with rust, and wisest tomes have yellowed into must. Ah, who shall tell the scholar from the fool, when both alike are crumbled into dust? From youth to age I sought to swell my store, and begged of priest and scholar each his lore, but though my shadow lengthens down the years, I still am standing at a fast closed door. Yea, though my life long I have toiled to learn, to choose the truth, and swift the lie to spurn, this is the only surety I have gleaned, from dust we come, and unto dust return. We come as choiceless as the flowing tide, we go resisting and unsatisfied. How many, love, when we are gone, will stroll together by this very garden side? All unconsulted do we come and go. O thou who quickened us to life, to know of sin and sorrow, shalt thou then complain that we should use our unsought portion so? I harnessed Saturn of the seventh crown, and saw my name enrolled of high renown. But when I stormed the citadel of Fate, the spectre mocked me with a visor down. Perchance there is a God, and he reveals an after life, and breaks the seven seals. Would we not crouch at this apocalypse, blind in the light eternity conceals? Oh, what are we, who for a space abide to seek our cause of being far and wide, but pebbles thrown upon a shelving beach, and washed about by each recurring tide? And human life a derelict that drifts forlorn upon a course each current shifts. Poor craft forsook of beacon and of crew, and left to founder in the yawning rifts. When of a sudden from my thoughts I woke, 'twas thus a flagon at my elbow spoke: "Waste not thy spirit in conjecture vain, O drink and revel ere the bowl be broke. Perchance this earthen jar inanimate did once possess a human form and fate, and some fair woman's cheek once rested there upon its lip, where mine was pressed but late. And roughly though the potter shaped the bowl, like me it once possessed a human soul. For lo, the draught I quenched my thirst withal was bitter with the tears of mortal dole." Does not the master potter treat the clay of humankind in such a luckless way, and moulding us upon his busy wheel, set us to labor for a little day? Then ere you drink, a liberal portion throw from out your cups that with the ruby glow, and in your feasting pause to pour this free libation to the thirsty souls below. The tulip cup each morn is raised anew, to catch its portion of the heavenly dew. Well, if the flower revels out its day, how much, beloved, how much more should you? Then drain your portion ere the goblet slip, and seek no further than a perfumed lip. If you are nothing, can your future lack the shield of honor you so lightly strip? From death's dark stirrup cup we may not shrink, but kiss the shadowy brim and fearless drink. For all must leap the precipice of fate, when each has stood his moment on the brink. My soul, I cried, if thou canst soar away, unfettered by this freight of base born clay, up, burst thy bondage, and on steadfast wing betake thee heavenward, oh do not delay. Khayyam, Khayyam, my soul did protest raise, thy body holds me but a span of days. Beyond the seventh heaven is a tent, which no farash may strike, no conflict raise. Sweetheart, resolve the question as you please. They say, ah, say indeed, when this life flees, shall we be missed? Shall we be missed among the sands that border on the seven seas? Think not the Saki shall create no more, when you and I are slipped beyond the door, for through the floodgates of eternity the tide of souls unendingly shall pour. Quick now the creaking caravan doth bend, and strain adown the track of time to wend. Dawn whitens on the bleaching wreck of years. Thy lips, beloved, till the end, the end. We breathe a doubt, aye, in another breath. We hang our faith on what the Koran saith. Believers, scoffers, lords of bold misrule, we cannot doubt we breathe, for that were death. Yea, on a breath is all existence hung, the thread on which these beads of life are strung. One day, perchance, when we shall breathe our last, by that last breath the secret may be wrung. This subtle majesty beyond the scope of weak intelligence wherewith we grope, we see it blossom in the growing rose, and feel its presence while we dare not hope. A flash of light, we glimpse a shining mark, then night is blacker for the vanished spark, the while the spectacle of life goes on, enacted just beyond us in the dark. If men were given eyes too dull for sight, which next were closed in death's eternal night, God trifling with his images of clay, oh were this justice and his holy right? Then seek no more by book and rule to bide, but nestle star eyed, sweetheart, at my side, And cheek to cheek beneath the dusky moon we'll drown discussion in the purple tide. And thus my firm decision will I shape, from lore and dogma to obtain escape. 3 times will I put off those withered hags, and woo the comely daughters of the grape. For why preserve a scholarly intent, pursuing virtue with unwearied bent, when death eternal trembles on the dawn? What matter how the midnight hour be spent? And whether there be 7 heavens or 8, to-day is passing on the wheel of fate. Morn may not rise, and yesterday is dead. Oh, come, and 'neath the vine thy life translate. Last night I dreamed the Saki of my soul swept lightly toward me with the jocund bowl, and holding it before my sober lips, "My lord," she cried, "this draught will make thee whole." That magic alchemy, so long time sought, I have discovered singly and untaught. The great transmuter is the purple grape, life's antidote within the wine cup caught. Yea, yea, it is the Sultan grape who rules, whose mastery nor age nor wisdom cools, his ruddy glamour mantled over life, to turn the heads of sages and of fools. O thou who planted in our hearts the fire of hot and irresistible desire, thou bad'st us save the wine of life, and then irrevocably tipped the goblet higher. They say the ancient writings show a paradise where milk and honey flow, but I will take my nectar from the grape, and find Elysium where the vineyards blow. Love, if the keepers of that promised land bar up their gates and issue strict command, topers and lovers shall not enter here, 'twill be as empty as thy little hand. But though the way we tread, the steep we climb, be lit with virtue, or be black with crime, nor cups we drain, nor orisons we raise, can check the moving caravan of time. And those whose eyes have languished o'er one cup, twin hearts whose ministry was bite and sup, not one of all those dear beloved souls returns to lift its broken fellow up. So when a sage awakes from out the deep to tell his dream, and thus its form to keep, he holds a torch before our blinking eyes, the torch flames out, and back he sinks to sleep. Out, out I sent my soul to sound life's well, and swift returning of its quest to tell. I am the pilgrim and the pilgrimage can fashion life of heaven, it cried, or hell. A transitory smile amid the tears, an hour of heaven in this vale of years, then back they troop, those ministers of hell, despair and doubt, grief and o'erwhelming fears. We are but shadow figures, rudely thrown upon the lanthorn cloth, and dimly shown, in vacillation on the Master's arm, to whirl anon into the black unknown. Aye, we are pawns in that portentous game of chess, or life, why cavil at the name? Soon will he sweep the pieces from the board, and then the rose will blossom all the same. A shuttlecock is man who lightly goes, or stays at destiny's capricious blows, but he who tossed thee on fate's battledore, he made thee, and he knows, he knows, he knows. To that blue arch, that smiling heaven cup, address no pleas, nor look devoutly up. 'Tis but a span of soulless atmosphere, helpless to send thee sweet or bitter sup. Then bless thy sweet, or bear thy bitter fate. The world is aging, and the dawn is late. What canst thou do with curses or with prayers, one destined letter to obliterate? At birth our primal act and final deed were written for the after years to read. Alas, poor souls, why strive against the lot, inevitable fate long since decreed? Nor whence thou comest, soul, nor where wilt go, is granted thy mortality to know. Quick, ere thou goest, take thy fill of sweets, mayhap the paradise is here below. There is a mighty bull supports the earth, another Taurus of a heavenly birth. Men bray, a drove of asses, 'twixt these two, at least to eyes of wisdom and of mirth. Give me a smiling face, a sparkling brim, curse brothers, and ye will or sing a hymn. Though my allegiance has not been the Lord's, I swear my prosing has not wearied him. The flower beautiful, the rose of truth, may be, despite the errors of my youth, will blossom sooner in my wayward heart than at the shriveled dervish's breast, forsooth. Wine, love, and song, bow brows and gleaming hair, wrath of the seven realms, for these I'd dare; and though the master sanctioned or reviled, this favor in the tavern street would wear. Yet thou, with that foreknowledge of it all, could fashion creatures preordained to fall, and send them forth in danger of hell fire, for each infringement of thy gracious thrall. Well, what if in our hearts unreconciled there lurk some question of that justice mild, which but rewardest heaven for our works, a toothsome sweet to lure a peevish child? Thou settest for my feet the mesh of sin, with threat of vengeance should I trip therein, and if I verge a hair's breadth from thy law, thy prophets add damnation to their din. O thou omnipotent, who in a day hast called us into life from out the clay, aye, we are drunk with sin, but sober too, sober in hope thou'lt wash these sins away. The Book of Pots. The month of Ramadan was fading by, with abstinence and fasting gaunt and dry, when lo! there rose within the potter's shop, among the little pots, a whisper sly, and in the growing dusk I heard one cry, "Ah, wherefore did he mould us, you and I? Not surely to unmake us, sherd by sherd, and cast us into darkness by and by?" "No," said another, "that were wantonness, the creatures of his hand to thus distress; for we would not destroy our fellow pots, and he the master, he could not do less." Then in a dingy corner of the room, a little bitterly from out the gloom, a crooked vessel spake. "See here," it said, "did I consign myself to such a doom?" And still another blurted where he lay, with quite a wordy, eloquent display, "Pray, who is he, to make and mar and sell, and traffic with us in so free a way?" "Listen," a fifth replied, "the sages say that he will judge us on a final day; but pshaw! I have no fear of such a test, he will remember we are all but clay." "Alas!" said one, "I do not dread abuse, nor yet this question of some hidden ruse, so much as that my thirsty sides will crack with this sad term of fasting and disuse." Just then each garrulous complaining pot addressed his acclamation to one spot, to greet the pale young moon. "Ah, ah!" they cried, "now for the wine vault and the shoulder knot! When I am dead, chant me a lusty line, and wash my body in the glowing wine. Give me a vineyard grave, and pile my couch with fragrant blossoms of the sovereign vine. Brothers, bestow me by some quiet wall, where shadows of old friends may lightly fall, and where the tangled tendril and the rose may cast their kindly mantle over all. Yea, such a mighty fragrance must exhume from out the fastness of my grape-steeped tomb, that sober citizens, in passing by, will presently go reeling through the gloom. But alas! but alas! I have been much to blame. This grape has dulled the honor of my name, has worked my sad undoing with the world, and filled the cup of life with present shame. Oft have I sworn and added when and how I would eschew the cup, I would, but now the bulbul is a wing, and gaily mocks the sheer futility of such a vow. One night in payment of the stoup I quaffed, I gauged myself, and lo, the tapster laughed. Faith, he was right to thus appraise the stuff. Did ever ruby sparkle like this draught? Roll up the parchment. 'Tis a faded while, grown weary with an aged halting style, at best an idle record, idly writ, to con beneath the bough a little while. Sweetheart, if ere we sleep these tangled schemes we might recolor with diviner themes, we would condemn this sad old wagging world, and build anew the haven of our dreams. Forego, moon-faced beloved, ne'er a jot of mirth, but revel while thy vows are hot. How soon the beam scouts of the searching moon shall pass the trellised rose and find us not. Ah, ah! Look up, look up! Behold on high the wasted moon proclaims our parting nigh. Rise, brothers, speed with me a deep drunk round. Shatter your cups, and now, good bye, good bye. End of 100 Quatrains of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, by Omar Khayyam, translated by Elizabeth Alden Curtis.